guys, welcome back. My name is Kiara Selena. For those of you who are new, I am a licensed practical nurse, and on my channel I mainly talk about nursing and health, but we also do a bit of beauty, vlogging, and lifestyle. So if you're interested, subscribe. So I know it's been a while since I've been on here. I'm sorry. I will let you guys know why, and you guys will forgive me once I tell you guys why, but it doesn't matter. We're back and we're better and we're ready to move on to bigger, better things. So I have been getting a lot of messages from nursing students who are basically getting their butts whooped by online schooling. A lot of nursing students have been reaching out to me, basically saying to me that they feel like their schooling experience would be so much better if they were in school, which I totally understand. And they don't feel like they're getting that one-on-one type of quality time with their teachers to actually understand what it is that they're learning. They just feel like they're basically just sliding through slides, and they find it really boring. So a lot of people have reached out to me concerning charting, right? And charting is a bit of a scary thing, and I'll get into that in just a second. But a lot of people have reached out to me in terms of charting. They want to know how to better their charting, how to make sure that their charting is A1 so that they're properly protecting themselves and making sure that they're putting all the information that they need to put into their charting. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. The video starts, I want to let you guys know that the timestamps will be down below so that you guys can skip over to the points that are relevant to you. But for all of my new nursing students or my aspiring nursing students who aren't really familiar with charting and who don't really know what it is, I want to cover just what charting is as a whole before we get into the tips to improve your charting. So what is charting? Charting for me is two things, and for all of my nurses out there who are watching this video, if I forget anything, please help a girl out and leave it down in the comments. Even my nursing students, if I forget anything, leave it down in the comments. This is all about educating each other. And sometimes I forget things, right? I'm not perfect, so I'm still a baby nurse. I'm still learning. But charting to me is two things. The first thing is it's a form of protection for nurses, and it's also a form of communication for nurses. So what do I mean by it's a form of protection for nurses? So when I say that charting is a form of protection, it basically is there to show your competence as a nurse. It's basically there for you to prove that you are implementing all your nursing interventions, that you are basically doing your job, and that you're doing everything that it is that you could do, day to day, and also during a situation to keep your patient safe or to help your patient or whatever, right? So it's basically showing that you know what it is that you're doing and that you're doing what you have to do, and it will help you and protect you later on. God forbid if you do end up in a situation where you go to court, because the judges will read this chart and they are the ones that are going to determine, well, not only judges, there's going to be a whole bunch of other people as well, but they are the ones that are going to read your chart and determine whether or not you did your job as a nurse or whether you were negligent or whatever and put your patient in danger, right? So you are proving your competence when you are charting. That's what I mean by form of protection. It's also a form of communication between nurses, because although, yes, we do give report, a lot of the times at the end of your shift, you're just freaking exhausted. You probably had a rough day or whatever sometimes, and you're just tired, and you might rush through your report, forget some important or valuable points that could make the oncoming nurse's life and shift easier. But if ever you forget anything and that nurse wants extra information, they could go back into the charts and look and see, what happened throughout the day, find the information that they need. And not only for the oncoming nurse, like if you did your 312s for the week and you're not going to be in for the next 4 days, maybe tomorrow's nurse might want some information, and he or she might go back into the charts and see what you wrote, because you might offer some in your charting, you might offer some information that they need at that moment. So that's what I mean when I say that it's a form of protection as well as a form of communication for nurses. The first thing is to stay organized, and I actually got in trouble for this when I was on clinical, because I had all these random pieces of freaking paper in all of my pockets, and y'all know scrub uniforms have a lot of pockets. So I had all these different pieces of paper just scrumbled up in my pockets with like notes, and everything was super disorganized. And there was a time where I mixed up one sheet of paper with another one that I thought that I didn't need anymore, and I ended up throwing it away. And there were some vitals, like a whole bunch of information that I needed on a patient to chart, and I was unable to chart because I had thrown that paper away. The only thing that saved me that day is that the patient's actual nurse, because I was a nursing student, right? So the patient's actual nurse went in and did her own head-to-toe assessment. So she was able to chart, the patient's condition, the patient's vitals and stuff when we got in. But I actually got into shit for that, and I could have literally compromised my my clinical rotation. That clinical, if my teacher was a bitch, she really could have just sent me home, and I couldn't even have I couldn't have even been mad. So stay organized. For those of you who don't know, I have clinical log books. If you guys want to check out my nursing books, I will leave the link to that video down below so that you guys can check out my books and see what I offer. But my clinical logbook basically has, everything that you need to enter, your patient's eyes and nose, your patient's BM. There's a section for you to, just take notes, maybe notes that you, some things that you want to note down from report. If a person is diabetic, if you need to take their CBGM or not, all kinds of stuff. You guys can go check that out, but you don't need to buy my book. You can also go on Google and find log sheets. Honestly, just print them out and walk with that. And that helps you stay organized throughout the day because there's a section for you to enter the patient's room number, if they are DNR, their code status, everything that it is that you possibly need to know about that patient, which you don't only need also for charting, but if ever you need to communicate with the doctor or something, maybe for some reason, they might ask you a question on the spot and you might not have the time to go back into the charts and find that answer out. So having a log sheet is really good for that because you have all the patient's information right in front of you. So it's really important to stay organized. Don't just write things on little pieces of paper and just have them in your pockets and then just jot them in to the charts later on. Make sure you stay very organized because once again, charting is no joke, okay? The next thing is to chart ASAP, right? The sooner you chart, the better, right? So sometimes I know we have a little bit of free time and sometimes, a lot of people like to show appreciation towards nurses sometimes. So you might have donuts and coffee and, you have your little 5-10 minutes to eat your donut, to drink your coffee. And you may be thinking, oh, today's going to be a breezy day. Today's going to be fine, right? I'm going to do my charting later, but you never know what's going to happen. And one thing that I learned is that happened to me before, right? I was chilling. I was thinking that the day was going to be chill. And then something ended up happening and it set me back a good hour and a half. And then I ended up having to stay an hour later after my shift to chart. And what happens when you're at work, when you're not supposed to be at work, you're going to end up rushing, right? You're going to rush chart. And while I was rushing, guess what happened? Just guess what happened. Let me know in the comments what you think happened. I'm going to give you a second. I ended up charting this whole narrative story about what happened with my patient, and I'm rushing to write it because I have plans and I want to go home and I'm tired, only to look at the freaking chart and realize that I charted in the wrong chart because I was rushing. So what happened? I ended up having to stay extra time to write it in the right chart, and it just ended up being hella messy. And the next nurse that comes in and sees that, it's just not a good look for you. So honestly, chart ASAP so that you don't end up having to rush and so that you don't end up making mistakes. Okay. So the next thing is to always chart your patient's condition when you get in and to always prove that you are doing everything you have to do to keep your patient safe, right? So if you come into your shift and Miss Smith is perfectly fine and she's just the way that she is usually, she's calm, she's oriented ×3, awake, alert, she has no complaints of pain, she's eating well, and then all of a sudden, an hour after you leave, the next nurse realizes that Mrs. Smith is extremely confused and she's acting all iffy. She could go back into the charts and see that she was fine during your shift and nothing can be blamed on you. So always make sure that you are charting the patient's condition when you first get in, and always make sure that you are showing that you are keeping the patient safe. And I know that a lot of long-term care facilities will tell you to chart on exception, right? So only chart if something happens because these people aren't necessarily sick. They're just there because of loss of autonomy and their life is pretty repetitive. There are no real changes really in their day-to-day life or anything like that. But if you work in a facility where they require for you to chart, sometimes you may be wondering, I don't know what to chart. It's the same thing every day. I don't know what to say. But if you have to say anything, just basically say what the patient's condition was when you came in and make sure that you are proving that you are keeping the patient safe. So if your patient has been admitted to this long-term care facility because of falls, repetitive falls, and Miss Smith has a walker, she has glasses, and she has anti-slip shoes, make sure that you're saying that, she has her anti-slip shoes are on, her glasses are clean and that they're on, her hearing aids are on, although hearing aids won't really contribute to falls, but still, her hearing aids are on, her bed is at an appropriate level, her bed rails are up, 2 bed rails is considered restraint, at least here in Canada, I don't know about the States, but her bed rail is up, just these simple things, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a novel or anything like that. So always make sure that you are showing that you are keeping your patient safe, and always talk about your patient's condition, how your patient was when you came into the shift, as well as when you left, right? always. The next thing is always making sure that patient issues are addressed, right? If Miss Smith tells you that she has 10 on 10 abdominal pain and you're just like, okay, like whatever, and then something really bad ends up happening, you can easily get blamed for that, right? So always make sure that you are addressing your patient issues. If you come in, if Miss Smith isn't actually able to tell you what is going on, but you can see her crouched over and she looks like she's in pain and she's holding her stomach, it doesn't take an astronaut, or some kind of mega scientist to figure out that she's having abdominal pain. Now it's your job to figure out why she has abdominal pain. Maybe she hasn't had a BM. What could you do? Go look in the BM book, see when her last BM was. Depending on where you are, the protocols are gonna be different. Some places will say after 3 days, give prune juice. After 4 days, give a laxative. After the 5th day, give a fleet. Those protocols will change depending on where you work. But that is basically showing, you are basically saying what the patient issue was, right? How you determined the patient had an issue, what you did, right? What you did to find out what the issue was, and what you did to resolve the issue, right? If it's not stool, maybe it might be urinary. Check to see if her bladder is distended. Maybe you could do a bladder scan and see if her bladder is full. If her bladder is full, and maybe it's a post-op patient who has been post-op for 9 hours and they haven't urinated yet. Well, depending on the protocol, it might be different, but I know at least here where I live, most of the time of the patient is post-op and they have not urinated after 8 hours, you will do 1 in and out catheter. That is usually the protocol, right? So you will say, hey, the patient complained of pain. What did I do? The patient complained that she had like a bladder, like pain at the level of her bladder, or abdominal pain. What did I do? The bladder was distended. I did a bladder scan. It had 500 cc's of urine. I did an in and out catheter. This was the quality of the urine. It was this color. This was the smell. There was no sediments. There was no blood, blah, blah, blah. Basically everything that you would chart if a patient had like a cath bag, right? So always make sure that you are addressing the patient issue, because if her bladder ends up exploding and she's like, yeah, I told that nurse that, I had 10 on 10 pain and she did nothing about it. All right. And the last thing I want to share with you guys today, and this is probably the most slept on thing ever, but it's I's and O's. Always make sure you're charting your I's and O's, because I's and O's, as little as it may seem, as minor as it may seem, it can have an impact on your patient, right? So for those of you who don't know what I's and O's are, it's basically your input and output, right? So what the patient is eating, how they're eating, right? Are they eating well? Are they well hydrated? Are they eating properly? And what are they putting out? Did they have a stool today? Did they have a bowel movement today? Did they urinate today? And what was the quality of their urine? That can say a lot, right? It can basically tell you, I don't know, if Miss Smith, has been maybe urinating like 25 cc's of urine maybe once a day, and she's saying that she's having burning when she's urinating, and that she feels the urge to urinate but she's not able to actually pee. That can tell you a lot. Maybe she has a urinary tract infection, and if she even starts getting confused, then that's like the bonus symptom, right? So it can tell you a lot. If Miss Smith has not drank anything in the past 3 days, and then you see that she's a little bit tacky, then that may explain something. She's dehydrated, right? If she has a poor skin turgor, she's dehydrated. So it's important for you to put in your I's and O's, because when you're not there, the nurses can basically use that information to their advantage to basically investigate if they're trying to figure out what is wrong with a certain patient, right? So those are pretty much all the tips that I have for you guys today. I missed so many other tips, and this is why I always ask you guys for your help, right? I cannot talk about everything. I cannot make a 45-minute video. Like, it's just going to take forever to upload and the quality is going to be shitty. So I rather share the most important tips, and if I'm forgetting anything, as usual, always leave them down in the comment section below so that we can help and learn from each other. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did and you stayed all the way up to the end of the video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, to share, and to join the family by banging on that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to turn on your notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post future content. I really hope to see you all in my next one. Bye.